He is the most remarkable person I have ever known. He was my favorite person, the one I'd always go to for sage counsel, humor, health, nutrition, healing advice, love, support, to soundboard my creative ideas, music, songwriting, coaching, writing, filmmaking, work, my crazy ideas, but especially and most significantly, when the world and humans didn't make sense. The title of this show is The Widow Lovemore. This isn't a mystery. Widow is in the title. So there's obviously going to be a death in the family. So we'll get the ending square. Marcus Henriquez Lovemore died November 4th, 2017 in Los Angeles. Everyone knew he was dying except me. I was mostly in denial. I mean, I knew it was statistically likely he would die, but he kept surviving, waking up after surgeries, clearing one infection after another. Largely astonishingly, he was grateful, joyful, loving, and continued to be optimistic and hopeful that he would heal, right up to the moment he was gurneyed off to the surgery from which he would never wake. But this story isn't about the ending. August 2017. We are at UCLA Hospital where the vascular surgeons performed a second angiogram on Marcus's left leg. Anyone know what an angiogram is? Though angiogram sounds to me like some sort of happy telegram for Angie, it is anything but happy. Surgeons insert a thin probe deep into the patient to reach an artery, which leaves the patient sore, bruised, and aching for days, with two goals: diagnosis and treatment. Assess where the blockage is and clear or open the artery. The vascular surgeon walked in and addressed both of us. At this point, about 9 months after the proverbial shit hit the fan, all the doctors knew to speak to both of us. When he had post-infection fever, hospital, and medication-induced delirium, they primarily talked to me because Marcus was, his words, batshit crazy. It's worth noting here that I was very engaged in this whole process. By trade, I'm a documentary film, television, and event producer, a path which included working in production, research, management, camera, art department. I'm good at problem solving, leading projects and people coupled with creativity. Sometimes we joke it's like herding cats. Once things got bad around December 2016 and really bad February 2017, I did what I do best, despite multiple sobbing breakdowns every day. I produced or project managed my husband's death for the last year of his life, as well as being his primary caregiver, life partner, and medical advocate. How many digressions is that? 3? Okay, here we go. UCLA, August. Angiogram doctor looks at both of us, then hones in on Marcus. The second angiogram was unsuccessful. We couldn't clear your artery, so it's time we start talking about amputation of your left leg. People like you do better with an amputation just below the knee. The scans show your blockage is here, so it's best if we do it here. Blah, blah, something, something. I heard it all, but nothing after amputation, except my own mind screaming, no, 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 you can't take his leg. He's a martial artist, an athlete, not his leg. He teaches martial arts. No. But I remain poker-faced while Peanut's doctor cut it off talks, my eyes darting back and forth from doctor to Marcus, doctor to Marcus, like a tennis match. I'll leave you two to discuss. As Doc Cut It Off leaves, my mind continues to race and fight, but my eyes land completely on Marcus. I know this man. We've spent nearly 9 years together at this point. My memory flashes to a documentary we watched about a competitive rock climber who got stuck in a cold climate and had to have one of his legs cut off at the knee. He went back to competing within a year, and his cohorts complained because the prosthetic and decreased weight gave him a competitive edge. He was actually better at rock climbing after losing his leg. I'm looking intently at Marcus and I just know. The first thing I say to him, not more than 30 seconds after Doc cut it off leaves, is, "You're thinking about taking up rock climbing, aren't you?" "Yep. It's the best sport if you're missing a leg." Your eyes are close to dreaming, and all the world is seeming so far away, but you don't have to fear. Ponies will go prancing, and fairies go on dancing in dreams tonight, but I'll be safely near. This lullaby is yours, the night as well, of course. Take all the love I have. There's more. I was never really any kind of believer, but more a true skeptic. Someone who is open-minded to evidence and experience, but not attached to any belief or disbelief. In 2003, I worked on a documentary where we filmed an atheist convention, and remember thinking, they believe in atheism and talk about it in the same way Christians talk about and believe in Jesus and Christianity. I didn't really believe, never felt any kind of certainty or comforting belief system that was definitive about what happens when we die. Even though as a self-proclaimed seeker, I've dabbled in quite a few religions and philosophies. Methodist, Judaism, Catholic, spiritual psychology, Eastern Orthodox, Qigong, meditation, science of mind, Buddhism, Kundalini, atheism, agnosticism, Tantra, Taoism. None of these gave me the enviable conviction, the certainty of knowing what happens when I or someone I love dies. Around 4 p.m., November 3rd, the surgeon came into the hospital waiting room and told me and a group of supportive friends that Marcus's abdomen was unlike anything he'd ever seen. The calcium that coated his entire peritoneal sac was cutting into Marcus's intestines. The surgeon told us that the shards of calcium actually cut his gloves, and that Marcus was unlikely to ever wake from the post-surgery coma. My world went black. I lost all sense of time, space, senses. All was gone. My body and the chair that I thought I was on were no longer able to hold me in any kind of upright position. I know that I cried and screamed because later my voice and throat were sore, but I wasn't really there. I don't have any cohesive memory. This was the deepest cavern of grief I've ever experienced. Felt black, senseless, timeless, heavy, deep. I came to some immeasurable amount of time later on cold linoleum hospital floor. I reached out and found a hand there to help me stand. Somehow I'd gone to the floor. I was a zombie the rest of that day. I don't remember eating. Don't recall conversations I certainly had with hospital staff and friends. I do remember going into the ICU, where he was hooked up to a ventilator. He felt deep inside of himself, in his own cavern. Still alive, but just barely. Only breathing because a machine made it so. Comatose, like the doctor said. A friend brought me to her house, which I didn't do much sleeping that night. And loved ones can't stay in the ICU with their person. Around 3 or 4 a.m., November 4th, about 10 hours after Dr. Death told me Marcus would never wake up, I got this strange supernatural message that Marcus was no longer stuck in his body. Just like his living non-attachment from years of meditation, qigong, and mindfulness practices, he became unattached to his physical body and felt free. A short while later, I started to have yet another crying spell. What I heard next shocked me, but also felt familiar. I heard Marcus's voice through my consciousness. He was yelling at me. Not angry, more loudly, so I would hear, trying to break through. "It's all a gift," were his first words to me. Without missing a beat, I argued through my tears. "You and your death? Even this pain? No, I don't want this. This is not a fucking gift." He replied immediately, "Yes, especially the pain. It's all a gift." I found out that around the same time, I was having my first ethereal argument with Marcus. He visited 2 other people that night. One, a decades-old friend and student. One, a new friend who felt like he bit her hand. That sounds like something Marcus would do. Later that day, I remember being in the ICU with his body while the respirator forced air into his lungs, and he felt happy, free. I saw him in my mind's eye as though he were flying and smiling and saying, "Wee!" Full weight, full health. It's worth taking a sidebar here. I realized that I could be making this up. See, I like to put on a wide-angle lens. I call it the macro perspective. Life is filled with minute choices and detailed minutia, so much so that it can overwhelm us. Experts call it decision fatigue. To mitigate this, I've trained myself to look at the gross or macro options and coalesce my big picture choices. It's usually only 2 or 3 things. Here's an example. February 2017, the first time that year Marcus almost died. I remember thinking, well, there are really only 2 choices. I stay and he dies or lives, or I go, we break up. He's in no position to dump me. That's not going to happen. So there are 2 options. I stay or I go. I'm 38. My husband's in the hospital, potentially dying. Leaving him. Both options felt devastating. So I asked myself, what's the least worst option? Staying with him, whatever happened, was the least worst option. So in this, what turned out to be his final day, the day I started being some sort of unintentional channel, I perceived the 2 options. I'm either completely making this up and maybe crazy, or Marcus is communicating with me. I've never felt communication from a deceased loved one. Sure, I'm spiritual. I meditate a lot. I have felt intuitive, ethereal, and seemingly magical guidance, but never have I thought of nor identified myself as a channel. But I felt him die with love, radical acceptance, freedom, joy, while communicating with me. In the last hours of his body having a heartbeat, I felt this sensation of him standing next to his body. It was as though he bent over, dipping his consciousness inside, looking around, examining his body, assessing it, with all the emotion of an insurance adjuster condemning a home. Then I heard him say through my consciousness, yeah, this is not my home anymore. This body's been used up. It's no good. I don't live here anymore. This is not my home. I argued about your skin, your voice, your lips. I loved you in this body. And you love me in this body. I want you to stay. Get better, please. He said, me too. I loved you in this body, but this body's no good. It's been used up. This is not my home anymore. I wept, holding his warm but unresponsive hand, feeling the truth resonate, translating and coming through my consciousness, well aware I could be making this up. But it felt as real as any sight, sound, touch, or taste input I've ever experienced. It's all a gift. His death was liberating, devastating, peaceful, painful. Relief. He died as he lived, with flair, joy, connection, with love. Take all the love I have. Take all the love I have. Take all the